Right, good evening everybody, councillors, officers, good people of Melbourne. I declare this meeting open at 5:30 p.m. On the 25th of August 2026. I welcome councillors and management and members of the public attending tonight's meeting. We are meeting on the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country, and I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we govern, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin, and pay respect to the elders past and present. We acknowledge and honour the unbroken spiritual, cultural and political connection they have maintained to this unique place for more than 2,000 generations. We accept the invitation in the Uluru Statement of the Heart and are committed to walking together to build a better future. This meeting is being streamed live and the recording will be published on Council's website by close of business tomorrow. The unconfirmed minutes of this meeting will also be available from the City of Melbourne's website as soon as practicable. I request that all mobile phones be turned off or to silent for the duration of the meeting, and I am pleased to say no apologies have been received from councillors. So we move on to agenda item 2, disclosures of conflicts of interest. You know the drill, councillors. Declare your conflict when we get to the item. Agenda item 3, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. I call on a councillor to move a motion adopting the open minutes of council meeting number 20 held on Tuesday the 28th of July. Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Liu. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. Moving on to agenda item 4, are there any matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting that anybody wishes to call out? No? Well, then we move on to correspondence and submissions. The following submissions have been received in accordance with the Council's governance. In relation to agenda item 5.2, notice of motion, Lord Mayor, Council support for food relief and community service in the Central City. We have items of correspondence from Chris Thrum and David Willis, both active citizens in our city. And in relation to our agenda item 6.2, Civic Precinct Renewal Project, we have an item of correspondence from Remo Nicolini, who is a tenant of Council House 1, the much-loved Remo's Pasta and Tiramisu. In relation to agenda item 7.1, notice of motion, Councillor Philip Lay-Lu, Melbourne Day celebrations. We have items of correspondence from Campbell Walker. Good to see you in the chamber this evening, Cam. And items of correspondence from Chris Thrum and David Willis again. In regards to the status of confidential items, does any councillor wish to discuss the status of confidential items on the public agenda? Councillor Owen Guest.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to ask a question. Specifically, we've received information as to why these items are deemed to be confidential. And so I'd just like to ask our acting manager for business and investment whether he concurs with all of the items that are listed as confidential, because the information we were given suggested it was his recommendation.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Guest. Did you want to... Who did you direct that question to? My apologies.
I believe I'm directing it to Dominic.
Okay. Dominic Iola, over to you. CEO.
Just to assist there through you, Lord Mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor Guest. Dominic, the question related to the confidential items in tonight's confidential section of the council meeting. There was some information that was circulated to councillors by our Director of Governance, David Thompson, but in that information he has included and referenced your assessment of the items from your division with respect to confidentiality. So the question is, do you concur with what's being said?
Thank you.
Do we have a roving?
He's got one.
Oh, okay, good one. Thank you, Nick. Over to you, Dom.
Thank you, and through you, Lord Mayor. The information provided by the Director Governance, I'd agree with in the form of the information that's been provided now. Might there be better ways to report that information in the future? Well, that could be the case. But for tonight, I'd suggest that they should remain confidential because of the nature of the items that are listed in the confidential papers.
All right for now.
All right, thank you very much for that. All right, we move on to reports from committee, and there are two reports from committee before us this evening. The first of those is 5.1 Melbourne Planning Scheme Amendment C466, Minor Administration Amendment. The purpose of this report is to recommend Council adopt Amendment 466 Melbourne Part 2. Yes, Councillor Philip Leilou.
I'd like to declare a general conflict as one of my offices in one of the buildings. Thanks.
All right. We'll give Councillor Leilou a moment to leave the chamber. While Councillor Leilou's leaving the chamber, I do note there are seats here for the public if anyone wishes to join us in the chamber. I believe that's the new seating arrangement for our meetings. We move on to this item. I call on a councillor to move a motion. Can we just please ask the motion be put on the screen? That is looking for a mover. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. And I am looking for a seconder. I can second it if you like. Okay, I'm happy to second. Back to you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Councillors will be very familiar with this planning scheme amendment, Amendment C466 Melbourne, because of course it came to our last Future Melbourne Committee. It now comes to this council to approve for it to be submitted to the Minister for Planning for approval in accordance with Section 31 of the Planning and Environment Act. This part of the amendment only relates to Part 2, that is all of the uncontested changes. The contested changes that apply to the heritage overlay, they've been separated and will go to an independent planning panel. And for those interested in this minor administration amendment, it deals with such matters, important matters I should say, as rezoning for new public open space, removing unnecessary planning approvals for minor works, and removing confusion and inconsistent interpretation in signage. For those reasons, I commend the motion to my councillor colleagues for approval.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I have nothing to add. Would any, as seconder, would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? No, in that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. Okay, we move on to agenda item 5.2. We'll ask Councillor Philip Leilou to rejoin us. And any members of the public sitting in the gallery who wish to join us in the new gallery that we've made available to the public down here are welcome to do so, I believe. Is that right? All right, let's keep going. The next motion before us is from myself, and it's councillors' support for food relief and community services in the central city. The purpose of this report is for council to consider the recommendation made by the Future Melbourne Committee at its meeting last Tuesday in relation to the notice of motion regarding food relief. Can we please put that up on the screen? Yep, that is the same motion from last week. I'm happy to move it, looking for the same seconder. Thank you, Councillor Gladys Liu. Look, I won't take up people's lives by speaking to this motion again. It's the same motion we voted on last week at FMC. FMC, for those members of the public who may not be aware, he's does not have the authority to make expenditure decisions on behalf of the City of Melbourne. That requires a vote here at Council. So this week we're bringing back the same motion from last week for that vote, noting, of course, by having it go to FMC last week, that empowered officers to start doing the work necessary so that we could deal with this matter as expeditiously as possible. Over to you, Councillor Gladys Leilou.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As the head of Community, Health and City Services, I have been fighting to get more funding to support our community services, including looking after people suffering from food insecurity. So I'm happy to second this motion. I'm sure our officers will do our best in allocating the added funding to those who need the support out there. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you for that, Councillor Gladys Leilou, and thank you for all the work you do in the community's portfolio. All right, are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this item? Councillor Owen Guest.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, obviously the thoughts and sentiments behind this motion are well-founded, but I do still have concerns based on what I've been told variously by various elements of management. And firstly, I would outline that it is the view of management, and I think anyone who's involved fiscally here, that it's unwise, if you like, to make changes to our budget in the first few months whilst the budget is laid down. So that is one concern. A bigger concern, though, is that management have already undergone, I would assume, what would be a thorough process here in this space. Tendering out, looking for various service providers, including those mentioned in this motion. And it's my understanding that management made the decision in their minds to go in a different direction, primarily as a value proposition is the word that was used. So decisions have already been made by this organisation not to do this in lieu of other services that we're providing. And given that we're already providing, I believe, record funding in this space, which I think is a very good thing, I'm just very hesitant on the basis of governance to, if you like, ask management to rethink something that they've already put a lot of thought into. It feels like potentially then that any charity or anyone could go into the media and perhaps twist our arms. I'm not suggesting that's what's happened, but it could be perceived to be that way. So for that reason, I, with a heavy heart, will vote no to this motion, which isn't to say that, if we can find sufficient funds here, maybe we should increase this in a general sense, not for the reasons provided here, though.
All right, thank you for that, Councillor Guest. Are there any other speakers to this motion? Councillor Philip Leilou.
Thank you. Look, I'm also want to say probably from a different aspect, which is we should also apologise to the many others who we've actually gone through the right process, who've actually got, who was able to come through, provide all of that. I don't think this is a reflection of them. If anything, I think it's a reflection of our failure to not be able to stand up for you, because you did all the right things. You did all the things that was expected of you. And yet we have decided to go a particular other area. And I think in the justice of things, that's something that we just cannot, it's not good governance. And it's not one, we can talk about the budget and everything. I think that is completely correct. We shouldn't just be, doing it through the notice of motion. We have a budget process just for that. But for all the other community the community organisation who provides such a great service, who've worked so hard to give us information, to go through the procurement and tender, and yet in the end was not able to do that. I think we owe them an apology. I think with the fact that we need to recognise that they have done this work and it's not a reflection on them. And I do hope that we do follow the right process and governance for this, because it's not something that we can go forward. So I do hope management and team will take on that, and that going forward, hopefully this will be the last of what is a very rare occurrence. But if it just keeps on going like this, I think that's something that we really need to address going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Leilu. Any other councillors wish to speak to this item? No. Councillor David Griffiths, over to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Prompted to speak, having heard some of the submissions from my fellow councillors on this really important matter, and thank you, Lord Mayor, for bringing it to us. I've spent a lot of time out in the community this year, knocked on thousands and thousands and thousands of doors. And I think it's fair to say that the people of Melbourne care deeply about their fellow citizens and want to ensure that they have what they need provided for them. And in this case, that's food. It's a matter of shame, I think, that we live in a city where we know 48%, half of the people in our city, experience food insecurity. And that's something that people who live in Melbourne know, understand and care about. Tonight we've got an interesting juxtaposition of issues that are coming before us. We've got this matter where we're talking about providing for the most needy people in our community. And we've got other matters where we're going to be asking council to spend time, resources, potentially finding pathways to more resources to celebrate putting up the City of Melbourne flag on various buildings and on Melbourne Day. I find it extraordinary that we can have a conversation in 1 minute where we can't find the money to pay for food for the people who live in our city, and the next minute we're finding ways to expend that money through another notice of motion. I'll be supporting this motion. I'll be supporting both tonight, but I think it's extraordinary that we're considering two, and this is the one that people find hard to support.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Any other councillors wish to speak to this motion? No. In that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Rees, Councillor Ball, Councillor Rouse, Councillor Liu, Councillor Scott, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Louis, Councillor Camillo, Councillor Leilu and Councillor Griffiths. All those against, Councillor Owen Guest. All right, that motion has passed. We move on to our next agenda item, which is, because we've now concluded reports from committees, so we now move on to reports from management. And there are 4 reports from management. The first of those, agenda item 6.1, Queen Victoria Market Precinct Renewal Program Quarterly Report. Would councillors like a presentation in relation to this item? No. All right then. Well, we will. I will request that a motion please be put up on the screen. I'll see it on my screen here. Yes, that is the motion. I'm happy to move it. I'm looking for a seconder. Yep, Councillor Guest, you're seconding. Thank you. All right. Well,
can I ask a question, Lord Mayor?
Please, you can. You can ask a question at any time.
Happy for you to move it first if you prefer. I just wanted to confirm the word accept. Is that the same as notes or receives, or does it have a different meaning?
Is that a question for you, David, or for our infrastructure team?
It's more a governance question.
More governance, yeah. David? Council resolves to accept.
Through you, Lord Mayor, I'm not an expert on the English language at all whatsoever. I'm used to seeing the words receive and note. In that particular context, I would read the word as accept as being receiving and noting.
Thank you. I think that makes sense to me. Do you want to seek an amendment based on that, or I think it aligns with that? All right. And you're still happy to second, Councillor Guest? Good-o. All right. As mover, let me speak to this. So, look, this report provides council with the latest quarterly update on the QVM precinct renewal program. In the last quarter, the key delivery milestone was completion of Delhi Lane refurbishment. And doesn't it look good? It has improved weather protection, public realm amenity, outdoor furniture and CCTV infrastructure, strengthening Delhi Lane as a safer and more attractive outdoor dining destination. The current approved program budget is $305 million. And as at 30 June, total expenditure was $237 million, and expenditure over the last financial year has been $51.7 million. The next phase is focused on core operational outcomes. This includes progressing the trader shed towards completion in late 2026, which is going to be a really, truly significant milestone for the Queen Victoria market, that critical cog, if you like, in the machine that is the Queen Victoria market, the largest outdoor working market in Australia. And planning is also progressing for the final phase, which includes Market Square as well as the Queen's Corner building. I am happy to support the recommendation before Council. Over to you, Councillor Guest.
I think that was a most succinct appraisal, and I think we could move on. Happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Guest. Any other speakers to this item? No, in that case, I'll put the matter to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. The next agenda item before us is 6.2, Civic Precinct Renewal Project. Would councillors like a presentation in relation to this item? No. Okay, in that case, can I please request that a motion be put before councillors? Yep, that is the motion. I am happy to move that motion, and I am looking for a seconder. Can I suggest someone from the infrastructure or finance portfolio second it? Thank you, Councillor Camillo. We have a seconder. It is now before us, councillors, for debate. So the decision before us tonight is about renewing important council-owned civic assets and making better use of them for the community. Council House 1, Council House 2 and City Village are ageing buildings. That is putting it very politely. Their condition has continued to decline and they require renewal to remain safe, compliant and fit for purpose. I have recently undertaken a tour of those facilities for my own interest, and I know many councillors did a similar exercise earlier this week. Many of these buildings are decayed, decrepit, and simply not satisfactory as modern places of work or civic engagement. And so, with this motion before us tonight, we embark on the first stage proposed by management for the redevelopment of this civic precinct. Under the first stage, there will be a relocation of the City Library from its current leased premises in Flinders Lane to a permanent council-owned home at City Village, 225 Bourke Street. This is anticipated to be completed by the end of 2027-28, ahead of the current lease expiry on Flinders Lane in June 2028. This will deliver a fantastic new library for Melbourne on Bourke Street. This will be one of the most important new civic buildings for Melbourne in more than a decade. It will see the Commonwealth Bank building, which was completed in 1941 and was at the time the tallest building in Melbourne at 52 metres, a record it held until 1958 when the ICI House was completed up there in East Melbourne. Melbourne's first skyscraper, ICI House was known as. But up until that, 1958, the record was held by the Commonwealth Bank building there on Bourke Street, now owned by the City of Melbourne. It's a beautiful building. It's a historic building. It's got a lot of historic character to it. And dare I say, looking at it from the street, it looks like a library. And it's going to be a brilliant, fabulous new library for Melbourne. and the sense of arrival and occasion you'll get when you walk into the foyer of that library. The entrance was once a bank vault. Will be a great welcome for the people of Melbourne and visitors when they visit that fabulous new library. The project is not just about a new library, it also includes workplace renewal. It will refurbish those towers and unlock about 7,100 square metres of community accessible space in the civic precinct. This will be space that can be used for community meetings. It can be used potentially for below market rent for NGOs and community organisations. It could potentially be used for new startup businesses in our city that are looking to get a break and could certainly use those facilities as well. If you believe in a big society, if you believe in a big community as the backbone of Melbourne, then that's what this renewal project will deliver. It will deliver a new civic heart for Melbourne, and it will make our community, our society bigger and stronger with these incredible and vitally needed new accessible, community accessible spaces. The economic assessment finds that the program delivers benefits of close to $210 million against a net present cost of $185 million. That produces a very positive net project value of around $24 million, a favourable result. These community benefits include improved assets, new community spaces, a better and brilliant new library and community facilities, and of course an improvement to staff wellbeing for those good folks, those people who work for the City of Melbourne. I support the recommendation and hope it will meet with councillor support this evening. Over to you, Councillor Guest. Oh, sorry, Councillor Camilla, I'm getting the presentation. Okay. Over to you, Councillor Camilla, and thank you for all the work you do, the hard work you do in the infrastructure portfolio.
So, Lord Mayor, I could not be so pleased because I'm also a resident of the city and hearing that once forever we have more than 40,000 people living in the CBD, and finally I'm here day by day that people want more space for congregation, various groups we can be using. Now we can have an option of a building that by the growth of the population we can be keeping expanding and make it growing one of those buildings. So I'm very pleased to second the motion before us tonight to progress this next stage of Civic Precinct Renewal Project. This project is about making better use of council existing assets and delivering greater community benefit from buildings we already own. Is owned by the City of Melbourne. Council House 1 and 2, along with City Village building, are aging assets requiring significant renewal, including essential compliance, accessibility, and building service works. This presents an important opportunity to address those issues while creating safer, more functional, and contemporary workplaces for our staff, as well as a better space for our community. There's a significant increase in civic infrastructure in the heart of the CBD that we have the largest population of residents in the City of Melbourne. I particularly welcome the relocation in this project of the City Library. And I would also like to thank Remo Nicolini for his submission this evening. The city is very supportive of business that operates within the precinct. And I understand officers will continue to engage with traders as the project progresses and residents. I commend this motion before us and thank officers for all the work to date. And I think it's a very good way to allocate resources of the City of Melbourne. Instead, to use that building, rent to someone else, why we don't use that is just the best way possible to look after taxpayers' money or ratepayers. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Could I ask a question of officers in relation to the submission we've received from Remo and I imagine others in his position? What will the City of Melbourne do for businesses affected by these works to make sure they are not disrupted or prevented from trading?
Send that one to you, Councillor. General Manager Rick Kwasik.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and through you, thanks for the question, Deputy Lord Mayor. We will continue to engage with the traders that operate within the ground level of the council civic precinct buildings. This is the first stage of many pieces of work. Once we engage a principal design consultant, we will commence engagement in more detail with the traders that occupy those tenancies.
And what assistance or other opportunities might the City of Melbourne be able to provide to traders who won't be able to continue from their current premises?
We will have to work closely with the traders to understand their needs. I suspect in some cases that the traders will be able to remain within the same proximity as their current location. Other traders will depend on their lease provisions and those sort of things, but we'll certainly work with them to try and assist them through that process.
My final question is, will the City of Melbourne's business concierge service be proactively deployed to assist in minimising that disruption?
Absolutely. Once we have a principal design consultant on board, from a design perspective, we'll be working with the traders, and then we'll retain ongoing communications through our business concierge to ensure that everyone is kept up to date.
Thank you for those responses, Rick. DLM, did you want to add anything further? Okay, well, thank you for that line of questioning. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Philip Leilou.
Just noting that, look, it's named after Commonwealth Bank. I'm sure the team will more than do it. I mean, Commonwealth Bank do a lot of good community programs. Like I still remember the Dolomite, I think, was the program that they used to actually run to exercise kids about learning literacy and everything. And so it would be great if we can also see how we can work with, I guess, given that they have a free naming rights already on top of it, how we can also then incorporate from working with the private and bank from that. But at the same time, also that whole block will need a rethinking of both not only transport, in terms of traffic management, but also some other things outside of it. So I'm sure the team will be more than happy to look at it, but I do hope that it's a big piece of work, and I do hope that we're not just only thinking about the Commonwealth, the old building, but also we're also thinking the block or the area as a whole.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and through you. We'll ensure that we have traffic management studies undertaken as part of the Civic Precinct project. That's standard practice for these types of precinct redevelopments. We'll also reach out to Commonwealth Bank and bring back to Council any opportunities around naming rights and those sort of things for the civic buildings.
All right, would any other councillors like to be heard on this item? In that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. Okay, the next agenda item is 6.3, post-travel report. Rick, you can turn your microphone off now if you like. Post-travel report by LM World City Summit Singapore and London Climate Action Week, June 2026. Would councillors like a presentation on this item? No? Good. Could we please put a motion up on the screen? That is the motion. I'm happy to move it because it's my post-travel report. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Kevin Louis, thank you for seconding it. And thank you for all the work you do in the international engagement space, Kevin Louis. Look, I can say in short, councillors, that it was a very, very busy and very, very productive program that I undertook on this work trip to Singapore and London. Across less than 2 weeks, I was able to deliver more than 15 speaking engagements, 17 bilateral meetings, including the mayors of many major international capitals, and including actually a meeting with the UN Secretary General, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and many others. There was some joined up investor roundtables, which were very successful as well, particularly in Singapore, I would say. We undertook many site visits and represented Melbourne in some major global city forums. A key achievement from the visit was that 41 cities across 6 continents signed on to the Global Urban Data Centres Pact, which was an initiative which was led by the City of Melbourne in partnership with the City of Phoenix in the United States. And so that was a great step forward in terms of cities taking action to ensure that the rollout of AI and AI infrastructure is done in a way which is environmentally sustainable and respectful of local communities. Yes, I do commend the motion to councillors. Over to you, Kevin Louis.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'll be just very brief. I just want to thank you for taking the time away from Melbourne and away from your family to attend this very extensive program. The report is very detailed with your day by day. Looks like your day-to-day program, itemised in great detail. The most important thing is we look forward to the opening of the C40 office in Melbourne, and thank you for the work you've done with the C40 group here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kevin Louis. Any other councillors want to speak to this item? No, in that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. All right, we move on to agenda item 6.4, Gas-Free Operations Contract Award. Would councillors like a presentation in relation to this item? Looks like you're off the hook, Rick Kwasek. So in that case, I will request that a motion please be put on the screen. Yep, that is the one. I am happy to move that motion. I'm looking for a councillor to second it. Thank you, Councillor David Griffiths. I will now speak to it as mover. So we are getting off the gas here at the City of Melbourne. We no longer want to be dependent on gas and, dare I say, Middle Eastern oil. As we have recently seen through global events, it's important that here in Australia and here in Melbourne, we are resilient and self-reliant, and using Australian renewables like solar and wind makes financial sense, and it makes us a more resilient city as well. Council is in the process of transitioning our buildings from gas to electricity, and then when they transition to renewables, that will make them more cost-effective buildings. It will also make them more sustainable buildings. We have also already made huge leaps forward with our vehicle fleet and electric vehicles. Now we're doing the same thing with our buildings. The City of Melbourne already runs on renewable power for its operations, but inside our buildings, we still have old gas boilers for water systems, gas cooking appliances, etc. That equipment is now at end of life, and so as we go about replacing that old end of life equipment, we are upgrading to electric equipment, and as I said, as part of that, we are ensuring that those items will now be powered by renewable electricity. The decision before us to award a contract that will support electrification works across key council facilities. These include Melbourne Town Hall, Carlton Baths, Kathleen Syme Education Centre, Library at the Dock, the Multicultural Hub, North Melbourne Children's Centre, Royal Park North Pavilion, Fitzroy Gardens Visitor Centre and Depot, and Studio Little Errol Street. The total approved project budget is $4.8 million. And almost half of the approved project budget is supported by a $2.3 million Community Energy Upgrade Fund grant from the Department of Industry, Science and Resources at the Commonwealth. So thank you, Commonwealth Government, for subsidising just on half of the cost of us upgrading our equipment here at the City of Melbourne. We're getting off the gas, moving to electricity, having that powered by renewables, saving us money on our energy bills, and also doing the right thing by the environment. I think that pretty much sums it up. Over to you, Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As lead of the Environment Portfolio, I'm very happy to be seconding this motion. You were very comprehensive in moving it, which is no surprise. You're right across all of these issues and have shown great leadership on this front, which I acknowledge. You could have left me one or two facilities out of the 10 for me to read out, but no, you've listed there very comprehensively the way that these changes will be rolling out right across the municipality. Each one of our neighbourhoods will be able to point to a site which will be going gas-free by the end of 2027, and that's fantastic news. All up, it means a reduction of 675 tonnes of emissions every year, which is a really significant contribution, and it's great to see. And because you've been so comprehensive, I've got a few spare seconds which I'm going to cheekily use to plug the fact that there's 24 hours left for people to have their say on where they'd like to see air monitoring happen. When we roll out our air monitoring pilot, jump onto the Participate Melbourne website, because some of the changes that we're making here are about reducing emissions, reducing those 675 tonnes every year is going to lead to clearer air, and we want to be able to test and model that so that we can roll that out right across the municipality. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths, and thank you for your great work in the Environment Portfolio here at the City of Melbourne. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? Councillor Owen Guest.
Ask a question rather than speak, if that's all right.
Please.
Probably to Rick. I'm just interested in what assumptions have gone into the claim of the approximately $50,000 savings per annum. I'm triggered, if you like, by, it says here, commitment to be gas-free by 2040 sounds like a sort of an ideological goal rather than one based in practicality. And I know, we all want to be able to run on solar and wind, but a lot of people haven't felt the benefits that we've been promised. So I'm just wondering what the assumptions are that lead to that saving, please.
Through you, Lord Mayor. The saving is purely an analysis of our utility costs. Based on the upgrade of the equipment, there's about a 33% benefit in terms of running costs, and that 33% benefit equates to around $50,000. So it's based on the 10 buildings that we're upgrading and the utility costs associated with those buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak to this item? No? I guess I would just, as mover, exercise my right of reply and make the point that, of course, transitioning to net zero is not a matter of ideology. It's a matter of science and tackling climate change. It's like ideology or having an opinion about matters of science doesn't really work. If you jump out a second to third story of a building, gravity is going to take you to the ground very quickly. Similarly, the climate science is very clear and we need to take action. And the benefit of what we're voting on here this evening is that we are receiving a Commonwealth grant, getting a great deal on new electric equipment, which will save the city money from day one, as well as achieving some good environmental outcomes. So let's put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That is declared unanimously. Okay, we move on to the next agenda item. We have concluded reports from management, and that is general business. And agenda item 7.1, our only item of general business, is a notice of motion from Councillor Philip Leilou on Melbourne Day celebrations. So I would request that the updated motion please be put on the screen. Can we scroll down, please? Yep. Can we keep scrolling down to the bottom? Yep. Okay. All right. You're happy to move that, Councillor Philip Leilou. Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Raphael Camillo. Back to you, Councillor Philip Leilou.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I know there's been a lot of interest in this particular motion, and I can understand why, because most people are very passionate about Melbourne, and we, as being the elected representatives of Melbourne, need to actually, I guess, represent Melbourne and this particular day that we are putting forward, I guess, here at Melbourne. For me, and that was just a word salad there myself. It's been a long day, sorry. But look, for me, it's what really got me was when I remember celebrating Melbourne Day, August 30 and coming up, but there's not a lot of people who actually understand or know that. And many times I've actually had to tell people, well, Melbourne's birthday is coming up soon. And, and it's, some people have just said, well, shouldn't City Melbourne be doing something about that? Why isn't City Melbourne doing like that? And luckily we do have people to support it. People like Campbell Walker and, and the Melbourne Day Committee for the last few years have been, many years, have been doing an amount of great work. I do say, please read Campbell's submission about the work that they have done around this. But also I want to thank Chris Thrum and also David Willis for their submission as well. I think it's important because the more people are interested and more aware of Melbourne, I think that just forms an identity that we can all belong to. I also know that, Campbell, your dad was mayor here, and I'm sure it's been a long time coming. But I just want to say thank you for the work that you've done, and also many others. I know it's an unpaid job, but you've tried really hard to do that. I also know that the Committee of Melbourne. I also note that the Melbourne Day Committee also actively work with traditional owners and also to ensure that the history is get right and everything. And so I guess, when people do say that, oh, well, complete forget, no, that's not true. Campbell can tell you first and foremost that, what's happened in the past will be remembered. And, and we're not saying that, we're perfect. But the fact is, we actually do collaborate, and Campbell's and the team actually do work with the people to ensure that we get it right. So this motion does not really take away anything that's historical or it gets into the political debate. All this motion does is commits City of Melbourne or supports making sure that City of Melbourne support the celebration of Melbourne. We should take pride in that. Both because I think it brings an economic benefit, but also it brings pride and also brings an identity. And I hope that through this, that we can have a really collegial debate. And it's through that I just really want to say, first and foremost, thank you to Jack Hanna for helping us to put all the work together. It's not easy dealing with councillors putting up norms every week, but he's really done an amazing job. And I also want to say thank you to the management for providing the advice, but also my fellow councillors. Look, I came to this motion with the view saying, my view or the highway, but I think for me, having a good reflection and speaking to many other, I guess, councillors, I'm happy to be able to be accommodating to ensure that all aspect is looked. And so what we have today is, I don't think everyone will be happy with it, but the fact is, this is the best we can do. And I think this is the one that, we can all live with and accept. And hopefully going after this, we can get on with the fact that we celebrate Melbourne. And this will send a very strong signal to everyone that, come with ideas, come with the celebrations. And so look, yeah, if this does pass through, and we are able to do it, I look forward to celebrating Melbourne Day next year, or coming up soon, in a more very vibrant and also very, I'm trying to use your word, Andrew Rouse, of how big we can go on this, right? Because I know Andrew is a very, very big proponent of it as well. But look, tonight is just the first step, and hopefully we can give this to Campbell and others to be able to go ahead and do this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Philippou, and thanks for your initiative on this motion. Councillor Raphael Camillo.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My speech is going to be a little bit more focused in my experience as an international student and a new migrant. I moved to Melbourne in 2007 and I rise proudly in support of this motion, and I'd like to thank you, Councillor Philippe Liliu, for bringing this forward. Melbourne Day is not simply a celebration of a date, it is a celebration of identity, belonging, and the people who make this city extraordinary. It is particularly meaningful that this motion is moved by Councillor Philippe Liliu and second by me, two migrants who choose Melbourne as our home and who we are proud to celebrate this remarkable city. We came to Melbourne from different backgrounds, with different experience and different stories. But Melbourne gave us something important, the opportunity to belong, to contribute, and to become part of this life of this city. That is the power of Melbourne. The city welcomes people from across Australia. Just 1 second, sorry. And the world. It allows different cultures, languages, traditions, and ideas to live side by side. Melbourne is strong when it recognizes that diversity is not a challenge to overcome. It is one of our great strengths. Melbourne Day gives us an opportunity to celebrate that shared identity. It gives residents, workers, and visitors a reason to come together in our public space. It supports local business, community, organizations, cultural groups, and artists. Most importantly, it helps people feel connected to the place they call home. A city is not defined only by its buildings, streets, or economy. A city is defined by its people and by the stories they share. But celebrating Melbourne also requires honesty. Our history includes great achievements, but also difficult and painful chapters. We should remember the people and communities whose stories have not always been heard, and ensure that our celebrations are inclusive, respectful, and meaningful. We should celebrate Melbourne with pride, but also with humility. We should honor our progress while learning from our mistakes. Understanding our history makes our celebration more meaningful, not less. Melbourne has become one of the world's great cities because of its culture, creativity, diversity, innovation, hospitality, and community spirit. These qualities are reflected in our local business, our arts and festivals, our public space, our volunteers, our workers, and the many communities that give the city its character. The initiatives proposed in this motion, including future programming displaying the Melbourne flag and exploring the alignment of the Melbourne Awards with Melbourne Day, can help establish an even stronger and more visible civic tradition. Imagine a day when Melbourne comes together to celebrate its history, recognize its community champions, support local business, and look confidently towards the future. That's what Melbourne Day can become. It can remind every resident, whether their family has been here for generations or they arrived only recently, that they have a place in Melbourne history. For us migrants, Melbourne is not just where we live, it is where we have built our lives, formed our friendships, served our communities, and found a sense of home. We are proud to celebrate Melbourne, a city that has welcomed us, challenged us, and inspired us. Melbourne's story is still being written, and all of us have a role in writing its next chapter. For these reasons, I strongly support this motion and encourage every City Melbourne councillor today to stand together in support of a Melbourne Day as an annual celebration of war, share, identity, our diverse community, and our common future. Let us, as a council, ensure that every Melbourneian feels proud to call this city home. Thank you. Back to you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Andrew Rouse.
I'll speak briefly, I think, after Phil's dobbed me in. I also want to thank Campbell Walker for your submission and the good work and commitment, as you've outlined in your submission, around making sure the history of Melbourne is told more accurately. And certainly as someone who grew up in the 90s, I'm sure the history and story that we were taught in primary school is certainly different to the what your organisation's been and enabled to be told as well. I also want to thank Councillors Camillo and Leilu, for bringing this tonight. I think the passion we've just heard Councillor Camillo speak with is more than self-evident for the love that he and the other councillors have for Melbourne. Going through the history of Melbourne, going through the 1830s, it is like to quote one submission, a piece of Swiss cheese trying to piece that back together. And certainly throughout the years, Melbourne has had many days that have laid claim to Melbourne's birthday, dating back to the 4th of February, 1803, the 8th of June, which was chosen back in 1935 for the centenary, the 30th of August, as we've heard mentioned previously, the 10th of April, which is the day that Melbourne became Melbourne, where it was previously called Bear Burp or Doodagalla, as our residents of Kensington would no doubt be known to as well. Perhaps my favourite stories related to all the days that Melbourne has celebrated would actually be the one that was noted in the Argus on November the 19th, as all of Melbourne waited with bated breath as to the result of the Australian Colonies Bill. The Overland Express arrived at Flagstaff, where there had been 69 beacons spread across Melbourne to celebrate and spread the news that Melbourne had separated from Sydney. And each of those beacons was lit in order to spread the news, and 4 days of celebration continued across the town. So the motion before us asks the question of how should we celebrate Melbourne going forward? And I think that is an absolutely fantastic question for us to consider. As Raf has said, there are so many things for us as Melburnians to be proud of and to celebrate that together. I think given the time that we've had as Melbourne over the last 6 years going through COVID, there is so many things that we can pull together to be more Melbourne proud, and I'm very proud to support this motion tonight.
Thank you, Andrew Rouse, Councillor Andrew Rouse, for those rousing words, and apologies for my coughing fit there. I was listening very intently. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this agenda item? No, in that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. All right, we move on to our next agenda item, which is the conclusion of general business. And so I ask the question as we move on to agenda item 8, are there any items of urgent business that anybody wishes to move? No, there is not. Then we move on to agenda item 9, closure of the open meeting. I call for a councillor to move a motion which we will display on the screen. to close the meeting to the public to consider items of confidential business. Thank you, Councillor Owen Guest. I will second it. We'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that motion carried, and therefore the meeting is closed to the public at 6:27 p.m. Thank you.